Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. And we broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week from high atop the Ozarks for now. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. He does a great job. Thank you, Jason. He's very proactive. And I'm going to have to see if I can get him an attaboy from Ted Anderson. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running, 605-477-3249. Hour number 1 is with Dr. Margaret. Hour number 2 is me, and I'll be talking about my new book that you cannot buy because I haven't published it yet. And I have no timeline for publishing it. So it's just a book that I've been writing, and it's in a spiral-bound notebook. I'm going to talk about tips and the way I live and our family lives. Welcome, Dr. Margaret.
Well, hello there, Vincent. How are we doing today?
Very, very well, Dr. Margaret. You know, I was thinking about that beautiful farm that you sent me an image of that's for sale in Spain from the 15th century. Absolutely magnificent. Yeah, I could do it. I could bring the whole family over there, and we could restore it to its former excellence. And absolutely magnificent. But I've got a couple questions. In that picture, I saw a tower. It looks like a transmission tower, cell towers. Do you have a lot of cell towers in Spain?
Well, that's one thing we have to start looking around now. There are more than when I came here, 20 years ago. Whenever I look at property, I do look for that. I didn't notice that in the photograph. I wouldn't say there are that many. Here, probably the thing that kind of concerns me most are the windmills, the electrical generators with the big windmills, because we have nice hills on the coast with a nice breeze, but they do cause a lot of environmental difference and some animal damage, as well as human, molestation. So, but cell things is something. 5G is not the big plan here, although it's probably going to happen in Europe. I would have to look again at the picture. Let me just get back to the beautiful home. It is inspirational, isn't it? I mean, it would be so lovely. I hear you all. It looks like everybody that you're talking to is getting ready to move. They're just not quite sure where. And
that's right.
So that seems
that's
to
exactly
be
right.
A new sort of topic. It's moved kind of up to the top of the priority list because where you are does matter. And I'm also noting that nobody wants you or anybody else, they didn't say that, but I'm inferring, to leave the area. And I'm wondering if it's a second language problem. I understand completely. I was mute for 3 years here. Now, I think of your children and the futures. And I know that your 2 beautiful sons would have no problem finding beautiful partners, mates, wives over here. They would be so highly desirable, being talented and well-bred. So, it's a mix. Nothing's perfect. You're a little old. I'm older than you. Changing language is a big thing. Oh, I don't know what to say. I just hear people being concerned, uncertain, nervous, stressed. Stress is very unhealthy. But And I'm hearing y'all are going to be building a fort out there.
Well,
you're going to need,
yeah.
You're going to need a fence. You're going to need guards. You're going to need detection equipment. I would have me some good old hound dogs of a few different types. We're arming up. Is that peace? So, and how many does it take against how many? And don't bring knives to a gunfight. So it's just all complicated. It's very different. Yeah, here it is not that way. People are not on edge constantly. It's just, I don't know. Y'all are welcome to come visit. I know you're tied to your place. But anytime anybody or any of our friends would like to come and I'll give them a little tour, that's available. The life changes are difficult. When do we make them? Too soon? Too late? Never?
Both grandparents, or actually all four of my grandparents on both sides, came from Italy around 1900. And
so did my great-grandpa.
I've got to commend all of them because it took a lot of guts to leave Europe not speaking the language, English. In our family's case, they spoke Italian, and they lived in a stone home, very much like the stone home that you sent me images of, built in the 1500s. Magnificent properties, and they came over here with not a little more than a suitcase. It was what would you call it? It was a little chest, and maybe 2 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet high, and we still had
trunks.
It. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, a trunk. And they put all their possessions, whatever they were going to bring, and that was it. That was everything that they brought. Hopped on a ship. I'm sure it was not very comfortable, and that's what they did. And you've got to give them a lot of credit because how many of us could do that? Now they were probably in their 20s when they did it. They were a lot healthier and they had a lot more strength, and they hadn't peaked out in terms of physical strength yet, but that's what they did. And I was thinking about my grandparents' house. He bought a house, my grandfather bought a house on the East Coast, and it had 2 bedrooms, bathroom. He put in a bathroom. The house was built probably in the late 1800s, maybe 1880. And he wanted a basement. It didn't have a basement. So he got a shovel, and my grandfather dug by hand a basement. Now, nobody does that today. Nobody even considered doing that today, right? But that's what he did. A wheelbarrow, a bucket, and a shovel. And then he formed the walls out of stones and mortared them. And that's what he did.
Yep.
But that's the way people did things back then.
Humans can actually do physical work, and they've mostly always done it. The thing about all of your people coming over, mine came over from various parts of Europe, either pre or post World War I or II. That's what war will do to you. It will make you pick up your stuff and get out of Dodge, if you can. The thing is, if you can. And then where are you going to go? Well, first, you have to save yourself. So, yes, it's rough. It's rough. And I have no suggestions. I just look at the alternatives. Everyone's different. But we have to think of the present and the future. And so actually, if you don't have another... Okay, let me say this about the Spanish house and living. The thing I ended up thinking at the end of our last conversation was I neglected to realize and to say that really what we need is cooperation, coordination, communication. All of this about food storage, building a community, preparing, getting your ammunition. Like for me, for food storage, one of the things I'm going to talk about today is not everybody has to do every individual thing. Get some friends, maybe some family members. Who has a lot of peaches? Who has pumpkins? Who is good at doing this? Who's good at doing that? Share it. Have the little conversations, group meetings, Skype, whatever's, there's ways to communicate for the moment. But while we have the time, work together. It makes it more fun. I'm trying to add fun into this formula. Food conservation and storage, we're talking about survival, doesn't have to be a punishment. I'm going to talk today about harvesting and enjoying the harvest that's available. I'm not going to talk about cans and boiling and temperatures and all that. So that's just one topic. I have a couple, but one is, yes, and as you all are talking about, getting together, forming groups, forming living places, coordinating for survival. We just have to talk about it more. We can't do it alone. And
Margaret.
then you have the trust problem. And even in a family, you're going to have trust problems. I have siblings who will go sneak in and eat all the Oreos.
Mm-hmm. Well, the
I'm
trust
being a
problem
little
is
facetious.
Yeah, the trust problem is really, really big, and I can tell you firsthand that it's a major consideration. Who would you like to spend the rest of your life with? I'm not talking about as a wife or a husband. I'm talking about in the village. Who would you like to spend your
compañero, somebody
right.
we share the bread with, we walk along the path with.
Mm-hmm. And I've said this, and it does bear repeating because it really is important. So for 5 years, Dr. Sheely and I and so many others, Dr. Joel Wallach, Rick Miller, John Reagan, the list goes on and on and on. John Moore, John Statmiller, a whole bunch of us have been to, I formed a meetup in Springfield, Missouri, about an hour from our farm. Mm-hmm. And those guys, at the drop of a hat, voted Dr. Sheely out, and while they were at it, they voted me out. They threw us out. So what ended up happening, they did a great job. They got rid of us, and ultimately the whole thing collapsed. So, and how do you deal, and I don't know, I really honestly don't know, how do you deal with people who are so careless, so reckless, no real loyalty. Only a few people had loyalty, but not enough to keep it going. So how, when you invite people to your village, how do you make sure that they don't destroy the whole village from within by just being reckless?
You'll have to have some entrance tests and requirements. It's like a private club. You don't get to pick your family, but you do get to pick your friends. And then people change. So it's, dealing with people is extremely difficult. When you ask who would you like to sort of, in quotation marks, spend your life with, I'm thinking, well, my dog, because,
Me too.
Go ahead, I hear the music.
Me too. The more people I meet, the more I love my dog.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Except for our instructors. I really love our instructors. We'll be right back. Class, Dr. Margaret's with us live in Spain. And Dr. Margaret, you hit on such an important topic, trust. And I just want to share a thought with you and love to hear your comments. So we live in a small village. There's only 100 people who live in the village itself, and we live outside the village. So most of the farms around here are, let's say 100-plus acres. Maybe one farmer is about 500 acres. We're about 241 acres. And these farms have been in the families for a long time, ever since the land was stolen from the Indians, literally, except for us. And so we have existing relationships. So, for example, a number of the farmers, the husband has died and the wife cannot handle the baling of the hay. They've sold off their equipment. And so what happens in this part of the world is if you have the equipment, you can do the hay with someone who owns the land. So what we do is we will cut their hay and bale their hay. They get half, we get half. So they can sell their half and pay their taxes with that. And then we can use our half to feed the cows. So we have these existing relationships for years. Well, what happens is other farmers, everybody knows who has the relationships. They see us on the tractors in the hot sun and baling hay. They will try to move in and undermine and undo those long-term existing relationships. That happens. I find that offensive. I find that not polite, and I find that as an attack on us. So when it comes to that, I can't work with those people in our village. I will not help them because they are trying to hurt us financially. They're trying to cause us problems with our cows because our cows depend on the bales of hay. We know how many bales of hay we've got in the pipeline, how many we're going to have roughly, and we operate based on that. So we adjust our herd size. Well, if those deals are undone, then we have to sell our cows at fire sale prices, and it hurts us. But the other farmers, they figure that, all's fair in love and war, I guess, and so poaching, I guess, is an accepted practice around here. People will hunt illegally out of season without permission on people's farms. They'll just kill animals. They think that's normal. So, and one other example is I asked our neighbor, his fence and our fence, it's the same fence. Okay? His property starts right where ours ends, and it goes for half a mile. I asked him if he would support me for running for the electric co-op, and he said, geez, you caught me off guard. He wouldn't support me. So now, how am I supposed to react and help people who are like this, people who poach, people who won't support me in lowering their electric bill, people who want to steal the relationships that we have? Is it like that in Spain? Is it anything goes, the Wild West per se?
No, it's as I've used the word before, it's a tight culture. The relationships have gone on for years and years and years. People know who the other is, and they know their mama, and they know their grandma. You don't break those kinds of agreements. They don't easily let strangers or foreigners in. Even though I kind of fit in nicely, they know that I'm not part of the deal. I benefit from their agreements because they bring me a lot of things. But no, those now that doesn't mean to say that people will not violate. Some people can be bought out, but there will be repercussions in the community. People are married to each other. This is a generational thing. It's just not that way in the States. First of all, families have been broken. Contracts don't matter. Money does. I'm confused about what I would do in your situation. I think in your situation, I would not be there. Otherwise, I would have to have some way to establish and collect around me and work with some highly trusted friends. That, we used to do blood brothers and sisters. We'd cut our fingers and mix our blood together. But let me tell you this.
Hold that thought.
Go ahead.
We'll be right back. We're going into a commercial break. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Margaret's with us. She's live in Spain. And I've never met her. And I've never met Kyle in Montana either. I've got to tell you, some of my dearest friends I've never met. And some of my most trusted friends I've never met. Welcome, Kyle.
Yeah, good morning, Vince. I just had a couple of thoughts, Vince.
Who is it? Who is it?
My name is Kyle
Kyle.
in Montana.
Oh, Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Oh, good morning.
And seriously, Dr. Margaret, I've never met Kyle. He's been calling in for years. We talk on and off the air. He's brilliant. He knows a lot about a lot. He's done a lot of things. His advice is right on point. He's got lots of experience in lots of areas, and that's kind of who we are. And I was thinking about Dr. Margaret during the commercial announcements, and she knows a lot about a lot and can talk about. Well, there's nothing that I found that she can't talk about, and is well versed in. And that's kind of who we are. And Dr. Margaret, you sent me an email. You said one of our instructors is a polymath, meaning many math, and Dr. Margaret is a polydo, meaning she does a lot of things. So back to you, Kyle.
That's great. You know, I had some thoughts, Vince, about living in another country, and you know, the reality that my experiences have been is that there are differences in culture for people, but in reality, people are people. And if there is the, terrible situations, SHTF type scenarios, that because if this country goes down, it's going to plunge a lot, if not most of the world into the same sort of depression. And if that happens, those, I believe personally, now this is not coming against anything you're saying, Dr. Margaret, but because I like Vince, really admire your knowledge and your wisdom. But my feeling is this, that people, if they take care of themselves and there's a real culture and they go back generations and generations together, they're going to take care of themselves first, and foreigners will be way down the totem pole. And it's like even John Reagan. I admire John tremendously, but even looking at going to Belize, I looked that up just for curiosity. The maximum amount of ammunition you can have in Belize is 100 rounds, and you get thrown in jail for 101. And it takes 6 months to a year to be able to get a firearm down there. And the same thing was, I don't know what Spain is like necessarily, but you have both sides of a coin. Number one, you can't defend yourself hardly at all. But number two, there's not a lot of guns to be able to have to defend against. What worries me about Europe tremendously is I have a acquaintance whose family still lives in Czechoslovakia. And I asked her the other day about the migrant problem over there. And she said it is absolutely horrible where they are. She said her dad and her two brothers and her mom boarded up their house because there was a mob of these migrants that came through that numbered, they said about 200 people. And they were literally with baseball bats beating them from entering their house. Just getting anybody that come through, she said that her parents told her that they stole everything that wasn't nailed or screwed down. So to me, I understand living in this country is probably going to be really bad, but the only thing I think that it will be worse is being a foreigner in a culture where you are the major outsider and have no way other than possibly a machete or a baseball bat to defend yourself.
Well, why am I thinking of 25 to 40 million illegal immigrants in the United States poised for whatever action? It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. I agree with your comment that people are people, and human beings are the most vicious predators on the earth. However, over here, and I guess outside of the country, what I've found is that if you're a good person, courteous, respectful, honest, pleasant, helpful, useful, contributive, they will be nice to you. Let me give you a contradictory bit of information. Here, when I first came, it's normal for Americans to eat alone in a restaurant or anywhere. I mean, we're getting more used to eating alone than anywhere else. But in a restaurant, when I used to go here to eat out lunch by myself, the people around me would always insist that I join them. They said there was nothing sadder than seeing someone eat alone. I live on the Camino of Santiago. There was a film by Martin Sheen called The Way, and this is a 1,000-year-old pilgrimage route from Eastern Europe and other parts of the world into the end of the earth, which is Santiago de Compostela. So along that route, the notion and the custom always has been the travelers who are foreigners always can stop and get a sandwich or something to drink or sleep in the stable or whatever. There are hostels, there are free places. It's made for pilgrims. Now, I'm not talking about Germany, and I'm not talking about even Italy, and I don't think France does it. But in this part of the world, Spain, Portugal, and even part of France, they are used to people walking through. They won't let people die alone on the side of the road. The problem is illegal immigration.
Yes.
If you're legal, then what else can they ask for? And if you're a good person, I'm going to say you'll be integrated and accepted if that's what you try to do.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that that would change if your food supply was dropped by about 70%?
I think they'd still share the bread with you. They'd still give you a glass of wine. You can still sleep under the tree. We're talking about post-war cultures. The people here have suffered. They know what it is not to have anything to eat. They've been there. They've either suffered here or they've gone away and then they've come back. But the suffering human condition they're just more compassionate. And again, they're not armed except with extremely dangerous farm tools.
Okay. Do you guys have much? Is there much of the migrant migration in Spain of the people coming from Africa and everywhere else, Muslim countries?
Do you mean legal or illegal?
Both.
Well, people come through here. The illegal ones who do come to shore are spotted at about 10 miles offshore. We have people who insist on helping and saving every person. We have others who deny picking up or are denied the possibility to pick up the people floating in the rafts and dying. There's a different mix, but actually the people who come here don't want to stay in Spain. They keep marching up to France and Germany where there's a lot more free stuff. And the tables have kind of turned. The countries are not the same. Portugal's a pretty nice, accepting place as well. I guess when you get into those more heavy Western, Northern, European countries, it's not so gentle. So, let me stop talking. Say something else.
Oh, well, I agree with you that the culture has a huge impact on people. And I do agree that that Europeans, as a rule, have went through, World War II and where it was fought on their shores. The only thing that I think that where things will get dicey for the entire world, no matter where you are, is going to be when there's no food or very little food. And I believe America is going to get really bad, probably. But at the same time, if there's no food and nothing or not a lot of food, or they have very difficult times, and we have brutal winters in a lot of the northern places. And I think the illegals, when there's nothing left in this country, will be headed back south fast as they can go. And there will be many, I think also, I hate to say it this way, but in reality, my dad was in Korea and saw combat for a very long time. And he said things that I've learned from him that I've observed and seen to be true. When things get really, really, really bad, what they're going to find out is that the white male that's in this country that's been attacked and demeaned and lied about and lied to are going to get so mad dog mean that people are going to run from this country that are illegal, because they're going to find out that there's a reason they whipped Britain. I'm just saying it like I think it's probably going to play out when times get extremely difficult. And I think, I just think it's going to end up being, I think there's a lot of really good people, and especially up here. It's like Vince and I have talked. It's like I live around Mayberry for most of we have crime, but compared to a lot of the other eastern side of the United States and things like that, we have a lot of good people, a lot of farmers, same kind of thing like Vince's, but I get along with almost all of these farmers, every one of them.
Dr. Margaret's with us live in Spain. Kyle's with us on the phone in Montana. Just a quick comment. In our part of Missouri, you won't fit in if you're not from here. You won't fit in if you don't go to the local Baptist church, and you won't fit in if you're not willing to be taken advantage of. It's as simple as that. And from our perspective, we don't go to the local Baptist church. We're not from here, and we will not be taken advantage of. We certainly are willing to help. Well, we were willing to help everyone, but that list is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as people have drawn the lines in the sand that they are not interested in working with us. We're not interested in working with them. When we find poachers, we will not help them. When we find people who are trying to steal from us, our agreements, our contracts, our arrangements, things on our farm poaching, if they try to steal from us, we will not work with them. And that's like forever. When someone violates our trust, they've taught us a lesson, and we remember that lesson. But it seems like it's different for you, Kyle, and it seems like it's different for you, Margaret. Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so, Vince. I'll let Dr. Margaret finish up here, but I think there's going to be there's so many dynamics that I believe are going to happen, that are playing into this thing, and the reality is the world, in a sense, by these world banks are being played, and we don't even recognize all of it, and there's really going to be no escape, I don't think, anywhere from it, because in my opinion, what I've seen from Spanish and Indian culture and different things where I've been to college and been around Norwegian culture and people that I've known there, they're still clannish, and as times get rough, they're going to end up taking care of their own first. And I think people are people. just better make sure. I wish you and your family were up here, Vince, because I guarantee you would absolutely, I think, love this area more than anything in the world. But I do understand why you're there and where you're there for a reason. But I do wish you were here, because I know that there's Rich and I and so many. I could introduce you to probably 15 people right now that are so much like you, and that it would blow your mind. I mean, literally blow your mind. But
I've gotten
anyway,
calls
I'll let
from
Dr.
them.
Margaret.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've gotten calls from them at the farmhouse. People who live in your neck of the woods in Montana. Of course, Rich even found us. You did. Your wife did. Freeze dry guy. He's up there. So many. And let me ask just one question before you go. I'd love to hear both of your responses. Sure. Me first. Is it as much me first in Montana as I see it is here? And then Dr. Margaret, is it as much me first in Spain as it is here? Kyle?
I think there is an element of that everywhere. And I do see that around a lot of places, me first, believe me. But when times, if you need something, I guarantee events right now, I'm within walking distance easily of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that if I needed something, they would be here in 30 minutes or an hour at the latest.
Mm-hmm. Now, I can tell you, if I needed something, how long would it take you to get here? And I'm not kidding.
Too long.
Yeah, I mean, there Joey would be here, and there are a few others, but for the most part, the meetup group, even though they've known me for years, they've thrown us overboard. So I've learned. They've taught me. Dr. Margaret, we only have a couple minutes. Any comments about today's topic? You're a wealth of information and a delight.
Well, thank you, but I must say that y'all have really messed up my plan for today. I was not going to do any. I was not going to have any negative information discussed. This was going to be a happy little presentation about how we can make the most of today and the near future, celebrating the harvest.
How about next Friday, same time, same station next Friday, Dr. Margaret? Okay,
because it's really an easy and enjoyable part, and Halloween is coming, and there's a way to make this survival thing enjoyable, and and there's a lot to learn. So yeah, I'll love all the topics. We could talk for hours.
Yes, we can.
But nice to meet you, Kyle. About the people being people, I've studied people all of my life. I kept trying to figure out what they're about. Let me say this about trust and your native area and your friends from forever and even family. In the past few years, I have been so hurt, abused, stolen from, and betrayed by friends of 50 years ago.
Very good.
Changed.
We're out of time. Dr. Margaret, thank you so much. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. This hour, it's just me. I'm going to be talking about some tips that I've written down for the book, and I'll share them with you. And if you'd like to call in, if you've got some questions about it, or if you'd like to vote for which one of us has been banned from Walmart, please give us a call. JoAnn in Delaware, welcome. You're on with me, Vincent.
Thank you for taking my call, Vince. I just find you a valuable resource, your broadcast, and those of your trainers. So I'm a frequent listener and first-time caller. One of the things I was interested in is your thoughts about establishing a community of people with like values and so forth that can help support one another in the future. based on what's going on in the United States. And so that's part of the reason I'm calling.
Yes, I know that you have sent me a bunch of emails, and I have tried many times to call you, and I sent you an email saying what I get is a fast busy. So
Yes.
I've tried different days, different phones. I cannot get through to you. I don't know why, but I can't. So I'm glad you called. It's not that I didn't want to talk with you. It's just I couldn't. So about this village, and I don't use the word community because it connotates communism.
Right.
So this village is a really tough thing to do, and I'll tell you why. A couple years ago, I found 640 acres, which is a square mile, so a mile by a mile. And it was magnificent. It was wooded. It had a stream running through. It had one way in, one way out. And we could have bought it for, let's say, bought and sold parcels for 2, 5, 10, 20 acre parcels for, let's say, between $1,200 and $1,500 an acre. The road, the dirt road was already in place. The surveying was already done. The infrastructure was in. Underground utilities were in. It was pretty impressive. I couldn't get enough people involved to do it. I would have had to outlay about $1 million to get this thing underway. And there was just not enough people who would say, I am in, I am absolutely in. Where do I sign up? Where do I write the check? How do I write the check? And I want to come see it. Not one person sent me an email or called me or contacted me in any way saying, when can I look at it? Not one. And in that same line of thinking, I mentioned, let's just give it one more shot, because people are saying to us, they love the meetups, even though they threw us out. They love the expos as well. And people from as many as 44 states and 6 countries came to our expos. Actually, one expo, 44 states and six countries. It was impressive. And you get a chance to meet us. But I can't do that anymore because the government runs those big venues. And they don't like our message. So there's no venue I know of that's privately owned that will have us, that will work. So the only thing that's left is that if we buy the property and we have it on our own property. And when I say we, I mean those of us in our class, the instructors who would want to buy a piece of it. I'm not going to buy all of it and say, here it is. Y'all have fun. No, everybody's going to have to step up and contribute. And I'm not talking about a lot of money, so I'm thinking you buy an acre out of, let's say we get a couple hundred acres, and we get 100 people who are interested in this. This would be it could be a plan B. It could even be a plan A. If you want to drill a well, fine. If you want to have a village well, fine. A village workshop, a village meeting center, village animals. I mean, we could all work together, and it absolutely could work because USA Prepares faculty is smart enough, and the USA Prepares students are smart enough to pull this off. But how many people do you think have responded so far as you have, JoAnn?
I don't know. But apparently not very many, which is surprising to me because when you mention it, and I basically, started listening to your show or your broadcast in the last year, so I haven't been privy to a lot of the information that you may have shared previously, but I think it's a wonderful idea.
Well, you're the only one.
What?
Yeah.
I'm like, find that unbelievable, quite honestly.
Literally, I am not exaggerating. You are the only person who is interested. Now, if I were in the business of selling something, I would say, if I were immoral, as most marketeers are, hurry, hurry, hurry. There's only a few left. We've sold thousands. It's just you and me. It's just you and me. And this land that I mentioned, this 1 square mile, 640 acres, is now not viable. It has been cut down. It's a moonscape. All the timber has been cut off it, and now it's worthless. Okay? It's been destroyed. But there's other properties, and we could do it. We really could. But there would be rules, JoAnn, and here's what I'm saying. When I was at the meetup, everybody would have their cell phones, and I just couldn't stop it. And I said, look, there are a lot of things I'd like to say, but I absolutely will not say them if you guys are going to have your cell phones, because they can be turned on, I can be recorded, you can be recorded. I will not have it. But people will not put their cell phones down. And I mentioned that, and there was a comment on the internet. Cell phones, I'm in withdrawal already. Really? Mm-hmm. So that would be a rule. Then, Ned, would you be able to live with that? Is it just you and me?
Absolutely. I have a cell phone that I basically purchased for, the purpose of emergency, say if I'm out on the road and stuff. But I don't like them either, and I'm highly insulted if I'm socializing with someone or out for dinner and they pull out their cell phone. It just really, I think we're very much aligned on that. Mm-hmm. I can't stand them. It's like...
Well, let me just share a few of the rules as I see them initially. Okay. And I haven't fleshed this out yet. But I believe that every one of us should already have a gun. Let's say a rifle, a pistol, or a shotgun, or all three. Every one of us who would be part of this village would know how to use them, at least at some level. Do you think that's reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's reasonable that every one of us would have some kind of skill that he or she would be pretty good at? Now, a skill could be, you could be a gardener, you could be a plumber, you could be an electrician, you could be a historian, you could be a teacher, you could be an auto mechanic, you could be a welder, you could be a heavy equipment operator, you could be interested and be knowledgeable in the sciences or the mathematics, be willing to teach at a village school, because I'm sure there would be a lot of interest in homeschooling. Mm-hmm. Do you have a skill that you would bring to the party?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to share with us what that is right now?
Well, some of what I've done, I basically have a master's level degree, but I've worked in corporate America, and I've actually done training. I've also done strategic sourcing, strategic planning. My hobby is gardening, and basically, teaching myself how to repair various things. I was very close to my father, and he was kind of the jack of all trades, and so he taught me about mechanics. I changed my own oil on my car and things like that. So I'm the type of person that I don't think, obviously I have limitations physically because of my strength level, but I don't let something that is a challenge stand in my way. If I want to do something or learn something bad enough, I figure out a way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we had let's say that building that I'm talking about, the meeting center for our little village, if we had a house of worship, but it was not denominational, it was not Roman Catholic, it was not First, Second, Third, Fifth Baptist, or Presbyterian, or Dutch Reformed, or whatever, would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. See, that would be, all the things that I'm talking about are fine with me as well. Mm-hmm. And what about manners? Would you be supporting teaching the young people in the village about manners? Absolutely. Okay.
I feel people are really missing in that department today.
Mm-hmm. So I would really like to see this village. I think it would be wonderful. How do you feel about this? So let's say we had 200 acres. Let's just pick that number, because this is doable. And 200 acres, we could probably, now it's going to be $300,000. So do you think that, well, let's use you, for example. Would you be willing to buy one of those acres and also pay for an amount of common area? Because if it costs us $300,000, the money has to come from somewhere. So would you be willing to put in your equal share along with everyone else so that we'd have a common area for the gardening, the buildings, the workshops, the tools, the equipment that we don't have that we might need? Would you be willing to do that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you find anything wrong with this plan so far?
No.
Okay. How about the governance of this village? How do you think it should be governed? a democracy, a dictatorship, a representative republic. Everybody gets anarchy, and I don't mean chaos. I mean anarchy means without rule, no rule whatsoever. We all just do our own thing. How do you think that should be?
I think the way our government was set up, representative type situation, constitutional republic, kind of under those basically guidelines.
JoAnn, I'm trying to figure out where I need to send the check to pay you for this because you are saying exactly what I had on my mind. Okay, this is the original plan, that it would be a representative republic, because some people might come in and not know enough in order to make it happen and might vote the wrong way to the disadvantage of the whole. And I would like to see the whole survival, but I do not survive, but I don't want to see a dictatorship. However, if I'm going to stick my neck out and do this, I would like it to be a representative republic. But if the thing goes off kilter, off course, awry, I would like to have the veto authority say no. And here's why no. I would like to do that if I'm going to put in all this effort. But I do not want to be a dictator. I would like leaders to arise to the calling, if you will. And that's what USA Prepares really is. USA Prepares is nothing more than a group of individuals whom I've given the term faculty, people who volunteer, nobody gets paid. We all are passionate about what we do. We do our best to show up on time, be prepared, and share. That's what we do, and that's what we would like to do in this village. However, we would be looked at by the GDP as a bunch of wackos and weirdos, and that's okay with me because I'm already looked at that way. JoAnn, would you like to hold through the commercial break?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Gather your questions and thoughts about the village, and I will do my best to answer them. JoAnn is with us from the First State. We'll be right back. Just a quick update as to why we're talking about building this village. Colt just suspended the production of civilian AR-15 rifles, black rifles. And gun makers all over the country are being sued by people who feel that deaths are a result of the manufacturing of those guns. I guess it's okay to use them in war, but it's okay to kill lots of people. But if some civilians are killed, then it's not okay. Just as an aside, there's a company that manufactured gas cans. They were sold at Walmart and other places. Biltz, B-I-L-T-Z, is the company. They had 60 to 70% of the market, the red gas can, plastic gas can market. While they're out of production, they are out of business. Why? Because they've been sued by so many of their customers. Why? Because some customers were burned by pouring gasoline on fires. So naturally, you sue the gas can manufacturing company, and now they're out of business. So the very best gas cans in the world are not being manufactured. And so the lawyers and customers have ganged up on these big companies, and they can have an impact. So Colt stopped manufacturing AR-15s for the civilian market. Pretty serious. So what are we going to do about it? Well, let's talk about one other thing. There's a tropical depression, Imelda, and Texas has declared a state of emergency in 13 counties. Over 30 inches of rain has fallen. There's immense flooding. Beaumont, Texas, 3 feet of rain. So what would we do? What would we do to protect ourselves from that? Well, obviously, we're not going to build below a dam. We are going to build in a hilly area where water runs downhill. We're going to build where there's plenty of groundwater. We're going to build where we can have solar, so the village would have a solar farm. It will have the inverter and the solar controllers to control the electricity going into the battery bank. People would be required to be judicious in their use of electricity. People would not be allowed to waste anything. Those are some of the rules. JoAnn, how do you feel about that?
I'm on board. I agree with all those principles. I don't waste anything. Just whether it's food or clothing or whatever. I'm a firm advocate of not wasting anything and repurposing things rather than just throw them in the trash heap. So I embrace those principles, and nothing you've said so far is anything that I would disagree with. So,
okay. What questions do you have?
I guess my main concern is in a village such as this, I believe in fairness and that everyone should pull his or her own weight. And I realize, it'll be different strengths and so forth. But, to me, it's like you said, if I'm going to put in the effort, I believe that everyone else involved should put in the same amount of effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a thought that in society today, a doctor's time is worth more than a plumber's time, and a plumber's time is worth more than someone who washes the dishes. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. However, in this village, it's not going to be like that. An hour is an hour, regardless of whose life it is. So a doctor doesn't get to work for 10 minutes compared to 5 hours of someone else's work. That's not going to happen. Everybody works. And this isn't like a concentration camp. This is all voluntary, and anybody can leave, but not everybody can join. There would be an interview process. I would start the initial interviews, and I would ask questions to determine the intent, the interest, and the commitment. And when I was interviewed for an early job in my career, the boss said, the prospective boss said, "So, what do you see your job as if we were to hire you?" And I said, "Well, I see my job as making you look good." And he kind of was stunned by that. Now, that is the same answer I would expect from a candidate for this village. Not making me look good, but making the village look good. Right. So each person would do his or her best 100% of the time, unless, not feeling well. I would expect 100%. No slackers, no goof-offs. Please hold through the break. We'll be right back. Class, JoAnn from the First Date and I are talking about the village that I've started talking about. Would you like to be part of a village? Well, yesterday I was hot and tired, and the last thing I wanted to do was repair our hay mower. It was a difficult challenge. The parts didn't seem to fit exactly as easily as they might. So I asked Mrs. Finelli to help me in the shop and press in a universal joint for the mower. Well, she helped me, and then she was relieved by our son, and 30 minutes later, we finished the job. Well, John Deere's price for the universal joint was between $84 and $140. And I said, there's no way, absolutely no way I would consider paying that. Our son did some research, and he found a great replacement part for $23. So we were successful and put that in. Now, why am I mentioning that? Well, because that's what it's going to be like. It's going to be like finding other ways of making things work, okay? And as far as this village is concerned, I'm not going to make it easy for those who want to know more about it, and they can listen, of course. But if they're interested in participating, I want barriers to entry, because if it's easy, anybody would do it. And I don't want lazy people surrounding the village or being part of the village. I don't want that. And I know you don't as well. So how would you find out about it? Well, you could dial the number. We'll even pay for the call. And that's 866-582-9933. You can call us, just as JoAnn did. And so might you be nervous? Maybe. I can understand being nervous calling on a national broadcast. All right. Well, get over it. Okay. If being nervous about calling into a radio broadcast is preventing you from being part of the village, you don't belong here anyway. Okay. Because it's going to get way harder than that. That's nothing compared to what life is going to be like. I'm talking about hot, heavy, far, painful. That's what it's going to be like. And that's what survival is like, because if you listen to any of these commercials, on any of the broadcasts that are in the preparedness aisle, if you want to call it that, you'll see that they talk about going backwards. Primitive things like, survival tools, sling bows. Sling bow is primitive compared to a semi-automatic Colt AR-15, right? We're talking about making fires and cooking. We're talking about hunting, fishing, canning. We're talking about lots of work. And that's what it's going to be like. It's not going to be better. It's going to be much more difficult. JoAnn, is that the way you see it as well?
I do, because a lot of things will not be available. As I shared with you through an email, I'm actively looking at off-the-grid properties, and it's an education in terms of an adjustment to your lifestyle. For one thing, your use of electricity. You better learn to live with less because of at least some of the properties I looked at. So, I recognized right away that there's going to be an adjustment to lifestyle, and some of the conveniences that we're used to will no longer be available.
JoAnn, you don't have to answer any of these questions if you don't want to. Just say, I don't want to. How many are there in your family that would be part of this off-grid situation?
2 at the moment. There may be others, if I have a chance to speak with them about it.
Okay. Do you have a budget in mind that you'd be willing to spend for that location? You're talking about off-grid.
I do have a budget.
I know I'm asking personal questions, and there's a reason why.
Like the one I looked at yesterday on 10 acres is being marketed. It's a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, and it was going for like $139,500 in rural Pennsylvania. But I can go above that.
Okay, I'll tell you what. If you can go above that, not much, just a little bit, you could have 80 acres with a small pond, almost, I would say, 95% wooded. You could cut down trees if you wanted and sell the wood to build a house. It's 80 acres is 1/4 of a mile by 1/2 of a mile, so it's pretty big. And there are deer, wild animals on this. You could, if you cut down some trees, you could build a garden just the way it is. If you cut down a few trees, you could set up your solar array. There's a living quarters on the place with a well right now and a lagoon, and the taxes would be less than $200 per year. Does that sound like it would work?
I was going to say consider it sold.
Okay. Well, I will contact you. Okay. Well, I've walked the entire property. If you decided to do that, you would be my neighbor.
Oh, my goodness. That would be nice.
You would live literally across the road. I mean, let's say the road is 40 feet wide, including the ditches. Just walk across the road, and there it is. It is absolutely magnificent. I mean, magnificent.
Great, yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, and you could move in. It's not for sale, but I know the owner, and I've shown this property a couple times. There are a couple of our class who are interested in seeing it, and I've walked the properties as recently as maybe a year ago, and they loved it. They said, "This is awesome." It's a 10 out of 10. It really is. However, if you wanted to make it right for you, you'd have to build whatever you wanted, okay? And whether that be a log cabin or just drop a manufactured home on there or build an underground, what might be called an earth home or a basement home, you could do it relatively inexpensively. You do not need building permits. You do not need wiring permits. You do not need plumbing permits. You just do it. Can you imagine that? You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to submit your plans to anybody. There's nobody to approve them anyway. There's no dog catcher. Really. I live in the Wild West, and I would love it. And we can still build the village. Okay. So for others, we could still build that village. I think you would be grinning from ear to ear if you are willing to. And there's a trailer on the property right now, and the trailer is livable. It's got a wood stove, and it's got electricity, and plumbing, heating, electricity. It's got everything you need, but it's not new. And what you'd probably do is live in that while you built your ideal, whatever it is you want to build. And there's nobody to tell you that it's too big, too small. The color's not right. The architecture's not right. There's nobody here to tell you anything. You just do whatever you want. And then when you're done building whatever you want, then you sell the trailer. And someone will just hook it up, put some tires and wheels under it, and haul it away. So it's got everything you need, including electricity. But that's close to the road, meaning the trailer's close to the road. I think you'd be impressed. I'll talk to you about. Somehow I'll send you an email.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my phone, but I'm getting calls, from other local and long-distance callers, so I'm not sure what's going on with it. But, I've got a few extensions throughout the house. I just said I'll double-check, make sure everything is turned off or, basically can receive calls. But, yeah, I would like to see it. In fact, I'm considering doing a cross-country trip the end of this month or early October, and I'd actually be going through Missouri. So.
Okay, well, then it's not for sale, but it would be for sale. And I know the owner. I've known him for 15 years, and I know he would consider selling it. And it would have to be a non-complicated transaction. It would have to be something where it would not be contingent on anything. He would just buy it. And that's the way we bought our farm here in Missouri. It was simply, we couldn't say, well, it depends on obtaining financing, plus it depends on selling this, second home, plus the third home, plus the main home, plus, a deposit from parents. None of that. It has to be a straight-up cash transaction. And you could arrange your own financing, but it would have to be something like that. And I guarantee you will be grinning from ear to ear and impressed. And as a matter of fact, you don't need to do any more looking. If what I've already described to you is something that you would like, literally, I'm not kidding, you do not need to do any more looking. You will want this if you're willing to build. And hardly anybody is. But I think you are the person because you have indicated that this is the kind of lifestyle that you want. Now, there's no 911. If you have to call 911 and minutes are important.
Yeah. Well, we've seen already that basically the police are not here for our protection anyway, so what's the point? It's like some people asking for assistance end up getting shot by the police, so it's rather frightening.
Do you think that the things that we say on USA Prepares, I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about all of us, are true? Does it seem like we tell the truth?
Yes.
Are we different from other broadcasts? Are we alone in what we say?
To some degree. Other than, anyone outside of independent media and most of the RBN broadcasters, I think, are more truth-oriented than what we're going to hear on, typical media with regard to NBC's, basically all those different communication sources. I just think that we're not really getting an account of what's really occurring. It's very skewed.
Well, I can tell you this, that some of the broadcasts, if you listen to RBN and GCN, some of the broadcasters have been to our farm. They have names like Dr. Joel Wallach. He's been here. And when I say, I'm talking about not just for, hey, how you doing, got to go. I'm talking about to sit down, have dinner, that kind of thing, at least. So Dr. Joel Wallach, John Moore, who's a broadcaster on RBN, he's been here. John Stadtmiller. John Moore and John Stadtmiller have been here many times. Larry Pratt, former CEO of Gun Owners of America, he's been here. There's a lot of people have been here. and kind of like what we do. So I'm not saying that you would be surrounded by USA Prepares people all the time, but you would certainly be welcomed by the USA Prepares faculty, and any of the events and things that we do, you would certainly be welcome to. And I got to tell you, it is the coolest thing. I am the most fortunate guy on the planet because of the friendships that have been established over the years via USA Prepares. It is, I know most of the faculty. I mean, very well. Kyle, I've never met, but I know him. Gwyneth, I've never met, but I know her. Margaret, I've never met, but I know her. And please hold through the commercial announcements, and I'd like to hear whatever questions you have, and I'll do my best to answer them, okay?
Okay.
All right. JoAnn in the first state, and I will be right back. So, JoAnn, if you feel the need to be entertained, go to the movies, go to restaurants, things like that, theater, this is not for you. If you're afraid of the dark, this is not for you. If you're afraid of outside noises, things that you haven't heard outside, this is not for you. If you feel that you need lots of Facebook likes, this is not for you. If you are addicted to social media, this is not for you. If you need a high-paying job with public transportation, this is not for you. If attacked, if your thought is to run and hide, this is not for you. So, and I'm being very upfront and frank. That's what this kind of a lifestyle is like. If you hear noises that you've never heard before, you'll become used to it. But if that's frightening, and you don't think you can overcome that fear, this will not work. If you're afraid of the dark, and you're not willing to overcome that, this will not work, because there are no lights here. There are no street lights. We don't have a paved road, and we don't have curbs, and we don't have sidewalks. And if you don't want your trash picked up, you don't have to. And and if you do want it, you have to pay for it. That'll be like $7, maybe $14 a month for once a week trash pickup. So, that's what this is like. What questions do you have of me?
Well, with regard to that, the property I just looked at, has a lot of wildlife on the property, including bears and snakes and things like that. So, basically, that doesn't concern me as much as the federal bureaucracy does. So, if you get a glimpse at what my mindset is, and part of the motivation for me to look at this property is I want to get out of congested, developed areas and go somewhere where there's no noise and light pollution and things like that, because it's just, I just feel closer to nature when I'm in places like that. And I've done, a lot of hiking and camping and things like that. So, I can live without the movies. In fact, I haven't gone to a theater in years, so it's not something that I would miss. So that's basically my mindset.
JoAnn, you sound like you're just like us.
Yeah, and I grew up with a father that could do everything in terms of all the trades, and he hunted, he fished, and I was the only daughter. And the way he treated me was that he kind of treated me special because I was the daughter. But anything I showed an interest in, he enjoyed teaching me. We went fishing together a lot, and some of my best memories are doing things with him like that. So he taught me, and he didn't baby me. I had to bait my own hood. When we got back, I had to clean the fish and all the other things. So it kind of like, if you want to learn, then you're really going to learn how to do everything. So I kind of grew up with that mindset, and they provided the necessary items for us. But when we wanted something outside of that, his first question to us was, how are you going to earn it? So that's sort of how I was raised.
How do your siblings and outlaws feel about this kind of a lifestyle?
Well, both my brothers are independent business owners. My one brother is a plumber. My other is basically a building contractor. So they're very frustrated with what's going on with all the rules and regulations and that sort of thing. And everything they've had, they burn themselves. So, and we've never received or asked for handouts. Basically, I'm first generation on my father's side, and all they wanted was an opportunity to basically better themselves. So that's a mindset that I'm part of.
Okay, what questions do you have for me?
I don't have any questions other than, if I communicate to you when I go through that area, I actually would be interested in seeing this property so I can check in advance in terms of availability to look at it.
Sure, we'll make that happen. And I'll try to communicate with you over the telephone. I'll try again this weekend, and if that doesn't work, I'll give you my phone number, which is something I don't do anymore, but I'll make an exception.
And one of the things I wanted to share with you, have learned a lot and appreciate the wealth of knowledge with all your instructors. And I'm also a huge fan of Rich Sheben. I like his mindset. In fact, I purchased this book, and I'm halfway through it, so I'm reading it right now.
Which book is that?
The book on that he published on basically his lifestyle and why he chose it and so forth. I'm trying to think of the title.
Rich Sheben, you mean?
Rich Sheben. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rich Sheben will be back in a couple of weeks, yeah. Rich Sheben's been at the farm, to our farm also. And that's the way he lives. He really lives like that. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that's, I'd like to go a little farther. I'd like to have running water that's with a pressure tank. I don't want to fill up the tank every day, but yeah, you can. But I've counseled Rich Sheben on things that he can do, and I've helped him with, some things that I would suggest he do to improve his system. JoAnn, thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate the call.